Okay, I believe we're on. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, James.
How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, all things considered. How about you?
Okay. Yeah, these are unusual times. Listen, this is a great opportunity to talk with you. I'm really excited. This is our first backstage with video session, and in this next 20 to 30 minutes or so, you and I have agreed to have a little bit of a chat about the kind of work that you do, the business that you're building in front foot, and we're excited to host this. So hopefully we'll be doing a few more of these. The point really is to talk up the service providers that are participating in the MeasureMatch marketplace, create an opportunity for you to articulate the work that you're doing, the services you provide, the clients that you are impressing every day with your skills.
Yep.
And so on that note, what I'd like to do is, hand it over to you. I'd love to hear about who you are, the business that you're building, your areas of expertise, and then we'll take it from there.
Great. Yes, so I'm Sam Eaton, and with my business partner, Christian Osborne, we founded Front Foot in 2017 as a specialist Datorama consultancy. Now, Datorama is a marketing intelligence platform, so it allows mostly marketers, analytics teams, and any company that does any sort of reporting to gather together all of their data, harmonize it within one place, and then build reports off the back of it. So myself and Christian actually met at Datorama. We were the first two employees in the UK back in 2015. And as we kind of watched the company grow and the sort of the software platform grow, and helped it grow, we kind of identified that there was a gap in the market for a partner to kind of provide the extra layer of support for Datorama's client base, because ultimately it is software as a service, and whilst there is a huge service layer to the business, there is also that space for specialist partners to kind of go deeper with their clients, and that's what we provide.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So you come from the business, and so very well all of the nuances that go into probably building the product to some degree, right? You've witnessed an evolution in certainly the development of the Datorama system, but also what it takes to sell that product into a business, and then to deepen the use of that system to create value for a business in its various functional groups. So you'd mentioned when we'd spoken before about what you've learned over the past 5 to 10 years in the evolution of marketing related data collection and reporting development. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've learned.
Yeah, so I've been working in digital analytics since 2007, and I guess for the first kind of 8 years of that career, it was very much Excel based. So gathering data from different platforms and data sources, and then kind of manually sort of lining it up, manipulating it in Excel. To give you an example, when I was AKQA, I was there for 5 years, and I did the reporting for Nike, and that was across different platforms like, say, Facebook ads, Twitter ads, Adobe Analytics. There was some paid search. There was some display done by another media agency. There was, Nike's internal CRM data, and it was a very manual process of kind of stitching together those CSVs from those different platforms. Also a very manual process of actually going to those individual platforms and downloading the reports, and then doing this every week or after every campaign. You have that sort of classic 80-20 situation which most analysts will be familiar with, where 80-90% of the time is actually spent getting the data together, making sure it's clean, and leaving kind of very little time to do the actual analysis and insights. Mm-hmm. And then I guess towards the end of that time, sort of middle of the last decade, I think us and certainly others started to dabble with other systems like Tableau, for example, but it was still an incredibly manual process. And so when I joined Datorama in 2015, even though it was early on in the product's kind of life cycle, it was still a kind of wow moment, because it did that end-to-end piece of automating the collection, allowing you to manipulate it within one system, and then obviously output the reporting. I think that even now, there's kind of two types of clients now. There's the ones who are it's still that organizational piece. So it's still like, you might have an internal team that's maybe doing a bit more advanced stuff in Tableau, or there might be one doing stuff in Data Studio, or maybe a database, but it's still disparate systems where you need to at some point kind of align, at a very basic level, like date to date, or across different markets, or campaign to campaign, or channel to channel. And so we still see that kind of businesses who they're not late to the game, because there's loads of them still out there, but it's still trying to move from Excel to something cleaner and more efficient and more powerful. And then on the other side, in sort of more recent years, the ones who have kind of been through that process already, they've maybe had their kind of BAU reporting, their clean data for 6 months, a year, 2 years. And now we're really starting to see clients coming to us and saying, okay, we've got this, but what next? Rather than being organizational, it's more like, what can we now do with this data, and what insight can we get from it above and beyond the kind of the BAU that they're doing?
Got it. Okay, cool. So lots of opportunity there, clearly, for those clients that are adopting this particular tool set, Datorama's software. And it sounds like establishing a baseline is relatively easy. Is that fair to say?
No.
No. Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. So when a client, first deploys, or, you and your team are helping to deploy a system like Datorama's, what goes into that? I mean, presumably you're connecting to a number of data sources. There's the transformation work that needs to be done to align those data sources to kind of clean it up, and then present that in some series of layers of presentation of charts and graphs and time series analysis, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yes. So what we do, for our most common project type is a new implementation of a new Datorama customer. So that first implementation is either done by Salesforce's internal professional services team, or they'll involve a partner like ourselves in that kind of sales process, and then we'll do the implementation work. And the most important piece is discovery, and that's when the client, you'll ask them the question, for example, do you have a naming convention? And they will often say, yes, we do. But that naming convention might differ between platforms. They might have one for Google Ads, but a different one for Facebook Ads. That's fine. But then they might have one which is different in the UK team versus the German team. And that's when often the client will kind of have to go away and think about how they transform their business internally. And what's great about Datorama and how we work with clients is we can actually help them through that. So we can build their rules as they understand them, but then kind of build out exceptions which show, line by line, this is where your business logic doesn't quite align. And actually, what's great about Datorama, it sounds quite simple, but if it's an API, which the majority of data is via APIs, they can just change that naming convention in the platform. We just re-pull it in, refresh the page. Okay, that's now working. We've now got 95% of our data is coming through clean, and off the back of that, that's when the reporting actually becomes pretty easy, because it's just slicing and dicing that data using those fields.
Got it. And so presumably there's an unlimited number of tweaks that can be done, after this baseline has been achieved, and that baseline can still take quite some time to get to. How frequently are you brought in to do those tweaks? And maybe another way to think about this is, how long typically is an initial engagement to achieve some kind of baseline? and then how often are you brought back in, or is your contract extended so that you can continue to build on that initial base of value?
Yes, so that's a good question. I mean, so we typically, for that implementation example, typically takes anything from kind of 8 to 12 weeks, and that's from discovery through to a QA data set and signed off reporting. Now, the way we work with Salesforce is that whilst we're doing the implementation, the client will be receiving online and an in-person training from Salesforce. We'll also be giving the client kind of the training on their actual use case, so use case specific training. And the idea being that at the end of that 8-12 weeks, what we've built for the client, they will understand how to manage, and ideally also how to scale. But what we often find is they're keen to kind of keep using us because they've maybe done 80% of their kind of standard reporting data sources and reporting output, but then they want to bring in more complex sources, maybe some offline data sources, maybe some CRM, maybe some internal kind of database, and then they want to evolve their reporting from just weekly, week on week. They want to say, okay, let's do a deep dive into which channel is performing the best. And that's when, what's great about working for a consultancy and working with Salesforce is that you can establish yourself as a trusted partner to both Salesforce and the client. And that way, when these conversations happen about, okay, we want to do this extra stuff, they'll either come back to us directly, or Salesforce will kind of refer them back to us and say, well, look, we can either spend your service hours doing this, or you want a bit more of an involved piece of work. Let's go back to the front foot and see what they can do. Got
it. And so I'm thinking about the clients that you work with initially, where you're doing, the early deployment stuff, and you're probably providing the training and the guidance so that there's a knowledge base in the company where, you're providing your services. So once that's done, and let's say it's a, thanks a lot, you did a great job, Sam, really appreciate it, the last 3 months were awesome. We can take it from here. How often are they coming back to you, 3, 6 months, 9 months later and saying, hey, we could really use your help to top up, to really advance the use of, certain parts of the product, or to turn on perhaps some new functionality? Because as you well know, and we touched on this before, these software systems don't stand still, right? So Salesforce, the software engineers behind many products are growing. They're getting a lot more creative. They're answering and addressing a lot of clients' business needs. And so a lot of features and functionalities surface, kind of week after week, right? Faster typically than a client can keep up. So that should mean, and at least this is the way that we see things evolving, in the way that service providers are catching revenue opportunities through the MeasureMatch marketplace. It should mean for you that there are lots of opportunities to go back into those organizations and really help them to accelerate the use of Datorama, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we often see a client will just continue with us on a kind of retained basis post implementation, because they either chose not to, or aren't able to kind of train someone internally to the level that they need to really make the most of the software. I mean, it is great because it is very user friendly, but there's obviously degrees of expertise in anything. Now, we certainly do see clients come back to us sort of months down the line, and the kind of example I spoke about before is once a client is kind of happy with their established kind of setup, that's when they start to think, what can we do next? And actually what we found is I mean, certainly through MeasureMatch, we've had a few leads where they were a Datorama customer and wanted some additional kind of help with their their reporting setup, and found us through MeasureMatch for markets we don't operate in, because generally we're quite confident that if a UK or European client went to Salesforce and said we need some help, they might know about us, they might not. But we had a lead from Australia, which was another Salesforce partner. They wanted to use our services to partner with them to approach some new business. It didn't quite work out, but I don't think they would have found us organically, say through the kind of Salesforce ecosystem. It's quite difficult to become established on there as a small company. Which, for better or worse, that's kind of how it is. And we're kind of keen to become more established on that searchable platform, but as things stand, we're not.
On that note, you know that we have a technology vendor component to the MeasureMatch marketplace. Still pretty early in its development, and there's a lot more that we need to build there. But so we imagine that at some point an organization like Salesforce will participate, or specifically, Datorama can come in and participate. And the idea there would be that, Datorama would create a partner hub in the MeasureMatch marketplace. It's designed specifically for them to, really grow and deepen their channel partner relationships. So with existing relationships, or to form new ones through the agencies and consultancies and independent pros that are participating on the supply side of the MeasureMatch marketplace. And we've had a few conversations with some of the larger software vendors like Salesforce, and I think they look at our business like, how can you help us to really move the needle? And it's kind of a difficult question to answer, because it's definitely a slower burn before we get to some degree of scale that makes sense for larger organizations to participate. But what we imagine is that, Salesforce or Datorama specifically could have, this hub that features channel partners like Frontfoot. So that when clients come into MeasureMatch, and they do come in and ask for Datorama help, Datorama support, Datorama services. So when clients come in, they can see that Datorama or Salesforce is participating in the marketplace, and that they have these verified relationships with trusted partners like Frontfoot to service, the kind of mid-market and long tail, which is different from what, at least the way that I see their current directory and the way that works. So each time I've looked, I've seen very large consultancies, like EY or Accenture or others that are featured there as go-to partners, which of course only service the top 1% of organizations globally, right? That have very large budgets and very complex needs that Frontfoot isn't really right for. But there are a lot of businesses out there that can benefit from your skills and services. What do you think of that model? And can you imagine that would be helpful to have, this additional layer of verification in a marketplace environment like ours to win the confidence of new customers that potentially come in from these markets where you would never have a presence, in Australia or in the US or elsewhere?
I mean, I think there's two sides to that. One is Frontfoot were kind of first to market because of our history, and that was great. But Datorama is in, I think, all of the major holding groups. It's in a lot of large businesses, and therefore there is, over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, there will be more and more people with that Datorama experience, having worked with that software in their role in their company. So on the one side, there's going to be more people who have the skill of Datorama, but aren't perhaps running a consultancy like Frontfoot, or aren't perhaps part of a company like Accenture. And then on the other hand, Datorama, there's a big push over the last few years to get into smaller businesses. So certainly in America and now in the UK, they've pushed hard to kind of give a little sort of light touch license to smaller companies to get their analytics up and running and their reporting up and running. And so on the one hand, you've got individuals or small companies who have Datorama, and then you've also got smaller businesses using Datorama. and I just don't think that presently there is a way for those two to kind of meet.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and that's the role that we're working on fulfilling, is to enable consultancies like you to source what I've been saying a few times now, which is a little bit weird, I suppose, unexpected revenue, right? So you should be able to, through a marketplace like MeasureMatch, be presented with revenue opportunities from clients that you would probably never think of reaching, because they're just in a completely different geography, or in a just vastly different category.
Yeah.
But the client has said, hey, we're using this product and we really could use some specialist help to make the most of it and get the ROI. So that's cool. Let's segue into something a little bit different here. And I know we're going a little bit off script, but this is getting interesting. Something that surfaced several times in the last couple of months for us are questions around how kind of technology vendors, these questions have come mostly from technology vendors, software providers like Datorama. How can we as software vendors position our product together with others to create a kind of 1 + 1 = 3 value scenario? And I'm wondering what your perspective is as a professional services consultancy. Are there any Datorama plus another product, or Datorama plus one plus another product scenario that you're finding is of real substantive value for clients? They really think, whoa, I had no idea we could do this.
Yeah.
And it really is really, really special. And it's and here I'll give you an example. So in fact, a large consultancy had a conversation with us recently, a very, very big one, and asked us about Freshworks plus Slack. Evidently, they see Freshworks plus Slack as a pretty significant services revenue opportunity for that consultancy. Are you seeing something similar from your perspective, a Datorama plus something else? Or again, it could be stringing across multiple products that clients can really benefit from, and you have the skills to integrate and deploy and advance?
Well, I mean, the thing about Datorama is it and it sells itself this way, is it's kind of agnostic. So it can take any data into it, and kind of work with any data set that you have. I mean, obviously they would push to work closely with the Salesforce products. So, Marketing Cloud, Sales Cloud, and so on.
Of course, yeah.
But that's the beauty of it, is that they could work with any CRM system. They could work with any email marketing system. They could work with any ad server. And so I couldn't identify any kind of common or specific 1 + 1s, because there's so many of them.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask that is because Salesforce is not alone in this model, right? Which is to say that nearly every SaaS product out there has its own baked-in marketplace of integrations, right? So if you're using Segment for data collection, when you just click into a new frame or page and you see all these wonderful places you can easily connect to if you're using those products, or subscribe to them, and turn on the data to flow through Segment, or any of these other systems, right? So they all have these baked-in marketplaces, and these integrated solutions are a big value prop. I mean, Intercom recently just announced its own big partner push, lots and lots of fantastic integrated products. But I think there's a potential problem in that, which is there's so much opportunity. It's difficult to know where to start.
Yeah.
And turning on the data is just the beginning, right? Because you need to do probably some custom configurations to really create some value.
Yeah, and I feel like the next big thing, or one of the next big things for Datorama, will be their kind of apps marketplace. So currently they've built their own ones out across different channels and different data sources, but
Yeah.
I think there is opportunity there for a business or a data provider to kind of build a really engaging and insightful and useful view of a certain data set or set of data sets within the platform, and either sell it or use it as a kind of marketing awareness tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. There is probably an issue with kind of awareness of these opportunities, and yeah, that kind of technical. How do we actually do this in practice?
Yeah. And also just some focus, right? So there will no doubt be a bit of an 80-20 rule, a 90-10 rule, meaning that the vast majority of the integrations that are available to turn on in these internal marketplaces within these apps are not going to get used, because they're not getting pushed, but because there aren't clear stories about the 1+1=3 value scenario, right? And so, so one of the things that we're looking to do is to get that from consultancies like yours, to tell those stories, to clearly pitch those value scenarios, those opportunities in our marketplace, so that when customers do show up, and we can identify which systems they're using right away.
Yeah.
We can recommend to them to say, hey, we know that you're using Datorama.
Yeah.
Have you considered this, this set of integrations together? Because these are the kinds of things that you can potentially realize, and it won't cost you a lot to go down that path.
Yeah, I mean that's something Christian and I, it's something that's as a business, it's on our list, but as other things come in, they kind of come above it in the list. But I think what you're asking is, if a client came in and said, we're using Datorama, or we're thinking about using a system like Datorama, this is our business, this is our business objectives, these are our inputs. Do we have something we could show them off the bat, which says, this is what we've done before, anonymized. This is what we could build for you, and this is a cost. And it's kind of it's almost like a shopping list of what they can get for their own specific needs. But we haven't done it yet. But I think if there was appetite for that and somewhere to actually showcase it, then that would be really useful.
Yeah, that's what we need to figure out, is the appetite. That's critically important. Where to showcase it is something we're solving for. So watch this space. Listen, I'm conscious that we've I think run our time period for this Q&A. I found it really fascinating. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask me before we wrap up?
No, I mean nothing specific.
No pressure.
No, nothing specific.
Cool. Well, listen, Sam, thanks a lot. Sam, co-founder, Frontfoot, a Datorama consultancy based here in London. And I am James Sandoval, the founder, CEO of the MeasureMatch professional services marketplace, also based in London, or really in the UK. We have a distributed team. But thanks a lot. For those of you who've watched all the way to this point, we will be back again with another Backstage. Sam, take it easy. Thanks a lot.
Yes, James. Thanks. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.